Hello friends, welcome back to another episode of Reddit ProRevenge. Who doesn't like to hear some satisfying revenge on people who deserve it? I've got 6 great stories for you in this one. You'll hear what happens when a boss lays his hands on a worker, a guy who should have kept his mouth shut, 3 kids who messed with the wrong guy, and some good old relationship revenge. I hope you stay for all the stories today and subscribe for future videos. You should probably never lay your hands on the people you work with, especially if you're the boss. This story is titled, "Don't Hit My Guys." My previous boss walked into the office where I was team lead over 3 engineers. I was out at the time but heard this from the victim. The boss was very angry about a mistake that one of my guys made on an architectural plot. Not a mistake, but a failure to use telepathy. The boss got so angry that, while standing behind the seated engineer, he punched the guy in the side of the head. As if immediately realizing what he did was wrong, he said, "Fix it," then left for the day. I got back to the office soon after, and they told me what happened. We made a pact that if he ever put his hands on one of us, we'd all stand up and put him down hard and back each other up. Well, it never came to that. After approaching upper management and HR, I got the runaround on reporting the incident. They all basically said, if it was that bad, then report it to the police. But he's too high in the political structure to fire for this. Unhappy with that answer and with my guy unwilling to involve the police, we set a plan into action. We invited his boss, the district manager, to see the progress that we had made on a day the boss wasn't around. During this, I asked the district manager to have skip-level one-on-ones with my guys, saying that it would be good for morale. He agreed. Each one of my guys opened with, "The biggest concern that I have is that boss man punched Tony a couple of months ago, and human resources told us that they couldn't do anything about it. How can you ensure my safety?" I got called in and gave my story, but I had to say that I wasn't there. I had tried to report it up through the proper channels and failed. I was told that it was political suicide for my entire team if I was to push it. The district manager didn't buy into the political nonsense. He made things happen. We agreed that my guys should not be in fear of physical attack. I also had the district manager's backing in case of the political fallout, and he was a personal friend of the CEO, so that was good enough protection. Bossman was walked and trespassed, which pretty much means that he was fired. Boom, headshot. Don't hit my guys. Some people need to learn when to keep their mouth shut. This one is titled, "And My Bartender Santa Gave Me an Extra Dose of Christmas Cheer." I'm a regular at a bar. I don't have family, and my roommate was out of town, so I went to the bar. I was having a good night. Then this jerk showed up. Now, this guy and I don't have a lot of history in my mind. I was dating a girl 3 years ago. She cheated on me, and I broke up with her. The whole relationship lasted all of 1 month. In my mind, that was the end of it. Stuff happens, move on. The person she cheated on me with was this jerk. Now, he's a weird person. I didn't harbor any ill will. This guy, however, ran in very vaguely the same circles as me. He would see me at a bar or a party and occasionally made it a point to say to someone, "I slept with that guy's girlfriend." I had zero interest in this guy. I gave not a single care about him. I just wanted to drink and have fun. What was weird about it is that he always introduced himself like it was the first time we'd ever met, and acted like he remembered me from somewhere. I would be like, "Yeah, you banged Jennifer," and he would say, "Oh, how is she? We stopped dating, after you banged her." "Oh, well, good talk," and the smug prick would pat me on the shoulder. This was pretty annoying. I dated this girl for all of 1 month. It didn't even blip on my radar as a serious relationship, except that this guy would show up every now and then and remind me that he banged a girl that I was dating. So I'm in this bar, hanging out with some vets, swapping war stories, and here comes this guy. He goes, "Hey, I know you from..." I say, "Dude, not now. I'm in the middle of a story, get lost for a bit." I finished my story, and he came back saying, "I know you from somewhere." Before he could finish, I said, "Hey, I honestly don't give a damn. It was like 3 years ago. He left. The owner and the bartender were around me. The owner said, 'So, do you hate this guy?' And I told him the story. He goes, 'Are you going anywhere soon?' After that question, I said no. The bartender was pissed because the dude was always grabbing her. The owner hated him because he was always driving drunk at the bar. You don't drive drunk. The owner has a policy that if you need to get home, they'll pay for a cab if you pay it back the next time you're in, and he will call the police on your ass if you try to drive drunk. That dude doesn't tolerate that nonsense. This guy had a history of driving drunk from that bar. The bartender went back and made a phone call, and I drank a few beers. I was promised a show, and I'd wait. The guy left and shook my hand. The smug prick even patted me on the shoulder and said, "Say hi to Jen for me." He He pulled out of the parking lot and there were media flashing lights. The bartender called the non-emergency line and said that there was a repeat DUI offender at the bar, and they sent a non-marked car to hang out in the parking lot. He served 1 month in jail, paid a few $1,000s in mandatory fines, and got his license revoked for 6 to 10 years. His vehicle was also immediately seized by police, and the judge ordered an ignition interlock device installed at his expense. Merry Christmas to me! You never know what someone's capable of doing to you. This story is titled, Ever Messed with the Wrong Guy? A friend told me about a guy that he knew named Ben and how he meted out some crazy revenge. Ben was driving himself down Johnson Road. Now, Johnson Road was one of those uncommon roads in suburbia that was kind of narrow. As he was driving, there were these 3 teenagers, 16, 17, and 19, walking shoulder to shoulder along the road with their backs to him. Not trying to hit them, Ben moved to the far left side to avoid them and give them enough safe space. Turns out it was a ruse by those 3 kids to get cars to pass along them, just like that. When he passed them, they took out baseball bats that they were hiding and started smashing his car as he passed, taking out a side mirror and causing some minor damage. Ben wasn't too happy, so he pulled over and got out of his car to address this. Not too smart since it's already 3-on-1, but you'll understand in a minute. The 3 kids see him, realize their advantage, and start charging at him. That's where it gets good. Ben pulls out a gun and tells them all to freeze. Turns out, Ben's a retired Marine with a concealed weapons permit. The 3 kids freaked out and stopped dead in their tracks, arms raised. Ben directs them to get on their knees, lie face down, and keep their arms and legs spread out. Now, this was back in the early 2000s when cell phones weren't as common. But Ben happened to have one. He called the cops on the kids right then and there. He said, "My name is Ben. I'm on Johnson Road, and 3 teenagers just attacked my car and threatened to attack me. I'm carrying a gun with a permit and have them on the ground, subdued. I need an officer to come by here as I'm pressing charges, and I want them arrested. When the officer arrives, I'm the one with the gun, and I'll follow his instructions." The kids start begging for him to let them go, cursing at each other and probably giving sob stories, but Ben's not listening. The cop arrives, orders Ben to put down his gun, which he does, and then it gets better. Turns out the cop is a retired Marine. He hears Ben's statement, sees the evidence, and then they have this exchange. The conversation went like this. The cop says, "So they came right at you?" Ben responds, "Yes." "And you didn't shoot them?" "No. They listened to my command, so I didn't see the need." The cop then looks at the 3 kids and says, "You're lucky you got him and not me. I'd have shot all 3 of you coming at me with bats. If this guy would have shot all 3 of you and told me what happened, I'd send him on his way." So the 3 kids get arrested. The cop tells the 2 youngest that they're probably going to screw up their lives if they keep this up. He tells the 19-year-old that if he's over 18 and an adult, it's too late for him, and he's going to jail for this. Then it gets better. They all end up in court, and it turns out the judge's son is currently in the Marines. He tells the other 2 that they're going to be tried as adults, and eventually all 3 go to jail for the maximum sentence that our state allows for this crime. Having all of your belongings donated while you're away would be horrible. This story is titled Teenage Breakup. When I was 16, I met an older guy, let's call him Tom, through some friends of mine. He was 21 and had his own apartment. We dated for about 2 years, off and on. Tom worked odd jobs, but he barely graduated high school and was admittedly not very bright. In fact, he was kind of a jerk. He would call me names, make fun of me in front of his friends, or ignore me when I was upset. He also would talk to other girls without trying to hide it, but if I texted a guy from band class, then I was a jerk. I liked him because I was dumb and 16, and honestly, to my 16-year-old self, he was really good looking. Well, it seemed that Tom had a secret. He had joined the National Guard at 18, and after basic training or something, he got to go home for a short time because his mom was very sick. Well, I guess his mom recovered very quickly, but Tom never left the military. Instead, he moved addresses and jobs often, so the military couldn't find him. Eventually, the janitorial company that he worked for found out that he was a runaway. I know there's a better term for this, but I don't know what it is, and they fired him. So, Tom was homeless. Guess who convinced her parents to let him stay with them for a while? That's right, me. So, I would get up and go to my senior year of high school, and my 23-year-old boyfriend would sleep in all day, hide from my dad, and didn't do much but drink. This continued for about 1 month. One day, Tom asked me to drive him to a friend's house and said there was a party, and he was going to stay for the night. I had school in the morning, and I had known these friends for years, so I said, "Bye, honey," and kissed him goodbye as he got out of my car. That's the last time I ever saw him in person. The next day, he said he was going to continue to drink and stay in the other town with his friends. I was so busy, so I just said, whatever. It wasn't unlike Tom to drink for 3 days straight, then come home and crash. Well, on the third day, his best friend called me and said, "Tom's cheating on you. He met Jane at my house party the other night and has been staying at her apartment, even though she knows about you. He told me that he wasn't going to tell you and to see how long he'd get away with it, but I knew I had to tell you because you don't deserve that." I was very upset. He was my first boyfriend, and he had broken my heart. I called Tom and begged him to come back, but he refused and said that he was with Jane now and that we never really even dated. I called the girl and tried to talk to her, but she just kept calling me pathetic and said that I never dated Tom. Like I said, Tom lived with me. Everything he owned was at my parents' house, from snowboards to books to all of his clothes and some furniture. Literally everything this guy owned was at my house. When I was done being sad, I was mad. I called Tom on the 4th day and told him that all of his things were on my porch and that he could come get them when I was at school. I said that he had 1 day to get his stuff, or it would be gone. He laughed at me and said he would come get it soon. Well, I came home from school and it was all still there. So I loaded everything up, cleats, a stereo, clothes, everything a person could own, into my car and brought it to Goodwill. It took me and 2 workers about half an hour to unload it all. I think they thought someone died because they didn't ask why all this person's stuff would be donated. The next day, Tom calls me and says he's coming by today, and I better not start any drama because he's bringing Jane to help him get the stuff. I told him not to bother because I gave it all away. He flipped out, screamed, and called me every name in the book. He had his new girlfriend come there alone to see if I was telling the truth. Tom called the police, and they laughed at him. They said if I told him to come get it and he didn't, then it's his fault. My friend who had called me originally was the one who drove Tom to Goodwill. The employees there laughed at him and said they wouldn't give him anything. Tom was also super broke, so he couldn't afford to buy anything back. I never saw Tom again, but the last I heard, he was in jail again. Living with random roommates found through an ad can be kind of sketchy sometimes. This story is titled, "Craigslist Room for Rent Goes Sour." I was in the process of joining the military, simply waiting for the day to enter service. It would take at least 1 month, but no more than 1 year. My apartment lease had expired, and I was looking for short-term housing. I was single, worked 2 part-time jobs, and had cash in savings. I'm quiet, flexible, with simple needs, and just needed the simplest of accommodations. I went to Craigslist and met with a woman who advertised a room for rent. We'll call her Jill. Jill was in her 20s, single, and came from a wealthy family who bought her a small 3-bedroom house, gave her a nice car, and paid her bills. Jill didn't like to work, she just, quote-unquote, sold her art. She made awful graphic art and fan fiction on her PC and probably never sold anything, but was completely obsessed with her own work and would talk about it constantly. Jill had pets. So many pets, like 20 cats, 4 dogs, a room full of birds out of their cages, and several aquariums. She had a bit of a weird and slightly skewed version of reality, but seemed nice, had a room available, and the price was okay. I could pay a flat rate for rent and utilities, provide my own food, and come and go as I pleased. Neither of us ever signed anything, we just exchanged details via text and email. She benefited from my moving in as I transferred my cable internet connection to her house, got the modem hooked up, and used my own wireless router to let her use it for free. I also have carpentry experience, so I helped her repair some door frames and wooden trim, in addition to patching up some drywall. I helped her out a lot, all while requesting nothing in return. The first week was nice, but things fell apart rapidly after that. She became manipulative and started making financial demands. She said the electric bill is high and you need to pay your part. She had bought enough groceries for us both without informing me, but now that the milk had soured and the bread had molded, she insisted I needed to pay for the wasted groceries. An old busted-up doorknob on the side of the house broke off while I was taking out the trash, so she said I needed to buy a new one. Individually, these didn't bother me much, but there was a pattern. After just a few weeks, living expenses had tripled beyond the agreed amount. I told her this couldn't happen anymore. I would pay the agreed-upon amount and buy my own food. Period. This settled things for about 1 week. When I got back from work, I found my room in disarray. My guitar was gone, and in its place was a bill from a plumber who had installed a toilet. Apparently, my bathroom needed some work done. Jill had lost all trust that I would fulfill my financial obligations after I had, according to her, freaked out about money before. My guitar was now a hostage, locked in her bedroom until I paid for her toilet upgrade. She even added a padlock to her bedroom door. It was time to get out. I told her I was moving out the next day. A friend had already offered me his guest room. She could keep the guitar. It was a $100 pawn shop guitar, and I wasn't going to pay for her to fix her house anymore. While packing, we had a discussion about the modem. She was taking an online class and she now had an internet connection and said she would get her own connection in a few days. I was angry with her, but not yet vengeful. I agreed to let her use it until my connection was transferred 1 week later. I called Jill the day before the cable transfer. She said she would drop off the equipment while I was at work. I texted a reminder saying, "Please don't forget to drop off the modem." She responded, "Left it in a bag outside your front door." That was weird, but whatever. I got home that night, no bag, no modem. I texted, "Did you leave it at the right house? I can't find it." She responded, "Yes, cable got installed, there was still no modem, and it would cost me if I didn't return the old one." Now I was vengeful. She had extorted money from me. I had been nothing but helpful and considerate, yet she had stolen my things and was probably lying and stealing more, which would cost me even more money. Jill took a pottery class on Thursdays, leaving the house for 2 hours. Her front door had a combination keypad for entry instead of keys. She claimed she would change the combination when I left, but she probably didn't know how to do that. I waited until after the time she left, drove past, and saw no one was home. I parked a block away, walked to the front door, and entered the code. It still worked. I went straight to her bedroom, which was no longer padlocked. There were my router and modem, right where they shouldn't be, because they were supposedly in a bag outside my friend's place. Weird. I grabbed my modem, router, and guitar. Then I inserted a spare, old, burned admin copy of Windows 98 into her CD-ROM, booted the CD, and set it to work formatting her hard drive. She could complete the Windows 98 installation later. She had complained about Vista anyway and probably wouldn't be able to retrieve her art or homework. I was back in my car within 5 minutes and at my friend's place 10 minutes later. Jill's pottery class still had another hour. I texted, "Finally found the modem. The bag must have blown into the bushes. Thanks for dropping it off," followed by a smiley face. I'd love to imagine the flurry of emotions she must have experienced at that moment. She called in a frantic rage 30 minutes later saying, "You stole from me." I replied, "Jill, what are you talking about?" She screamed, "You broke into my house and you stole from me." I said, "Wait, someone broke into the house? I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that." What did they take? Her remarkable psychological gymnastic skills were on display. She walked right up to the ledge of almost admitting she had lied to me and stolen my things, then psychologically backflipped away. Her story was not compatible with reality. All she could muster was rage and empty threats. That phone call was the last time I ever heard from her. Honestly, at that point the stuff and the money involved were worth less to me than the fact that she had so much rage but couldn't do anything about it. It brought me a little joy. The strangest part is that she never mentioned her computer at all. As an edit, I feel the need to mention that I don't regret taking back what was mine. But destroying something someone else loved, even someone I despised, doesn't feel totally great, even 10 years later. I don't recommend that sort of behavior. It's sort of funny to talk about now, but it put me through quite a lot of soul-searching. That one specific component of the story is something I look back on with regret. How far would you go to have better cafeteria food? This story is titled "It's Not Just the Food That's Revolting." Back in my college days, I lived on campus and ate the 20 meals a week meal plan at the cafeteria. It was terrible. Seriously, I know people complain about their college cafeteria all the time, but they still gain their freshman 15 pounds. I lost mine. The food was disgusting. Sunday spaghetti was made from tomato sauce and Saturday's cheap hamburgers. One week, they didn't even bother ripping up the hamburgers. We were served watery, sauce-tinted, overcooked noodles garnished with dry, leathery, 2-day-old hamburger patties. It was still better than the other options. At first, they had a make-your-own pizza line, but they removed it because everyone was using it, and bread isn't cheap. I remember seeing a real salad bar in the Healthy Eats line and getting excited because it's hard to screw up salads, only to realize it was literally floating in oil. The salad on the actual salad bar was not an option. It was changed out every morning, whether it needed it or not. Oh, I meant the ice in the salad bar, not the salad itself. A student wrote his initials in the tuna, and it remained for a solid week. Sometimes, the salad would grow its own salad. They had a big board set up for student complaints, and they would write responses back. Oddly enough, the board rarely had bad things to say. The manager, may he be haunted by 1,000 bedbugs, confessed that he didn't have time to answer every complaint, but he did read every one and took them into consideration. As far as we could tell, he threw away all the ones he didn't like. At one point, the board of trustees wanted to meet with a handful of students, and I got my name on the list. The food was catered by the cafeteria, basic sandwiches, if I recall. The first step of any revenge is to make a big deal out of it, and boy did I. I exclaimed, "Oh man, this sandwich has real lettuce on it. That's way better than what the cafeteria usually serves, and the meat doesn't even have a rind on it." The trustees laughed it off, thinking it surely wasn't that bad, right? I didn't even have to answer. The other students filled in the details forcefully for the rest of the meeting. It was supposed to be about general issues, but it became a yell about the food situation. It was awesome. The administration, with the trustees yanking on their ear, had a talk with the cafeteria manager, and thus steak and shrimp night was born. It was touted as a really big deal where they were going all out with super awesome food. Both the administration and the cafeteria promised great things. The students almost believed them. They made such a big deal out of it. The doors opened, and someone was there handing out tickets, 1 ticket each, which you could use to either get a steak or some shrimp. The options were a leathery, overcooked, grizzly, tiny steak or 6 micro-sized, overcooked popcorn shrimp. Students left to eat ramen in their dorms in droves. People were angry. Students flooded the comment box with so many comments that the top actually broke off from the interior pressure. The next day, the comment board had a single note on it thanking the staff for the delicious meal. The organization that ran the cafeteria was run by corrupt, money-grubbing jerks, but they were based out of state and super cheap, so there was no way we could touch them. Plus, a lot of the employees were actually really nice people. It was the manager and his wife, that were the problem. There was no way to fix it until survey day, a few weeks before the end of the semester. Desperate for more than 6 entries total, the cafeteria was giving away a bike. Anyone who filled out a survey was entered for a chance to win. Not that anyone cared, the students had been ignored for so long that they assumed the bike would be won by the manager, and having their name attached to the survey was extra super bad. I, however, hatched a plan. The poor lady handing out surveys was not allowed to do anything else that day. She was the survey lady, end of story, and was supposed to stay until the last survey was handed out. I offered to pass out some surveys, and she gladly accepted. I took a stack of surveys to the back table and filled out every single one, name, phone number, and marked them with bad, 0, terrible, would not buy again, then moved on to the next. Fun fact, the top of the survey with my name was designed to tear off. My name went into the bowl for the bike drawing, and the survey was submitted anonymously. I filled out a stack, returned them, then filled out another, and kept coming back until I filled out the very last survey she had. Revenge isn't for quitters. As I walked back to my dorm, my hand was sore, but my heart was light, and so began the falling dominoes. I didn't learn the full story until the next semester, but as it turned out, the survey results were the worst on record. The administration, who had been watching closely, noticed. Angry meetings were held, meetings that the cafeteria didn't cater. The health inspector was invited and gleefully slapped some hefty fines on the parent company. By the end of the semester, the manager was collecting his last paycheck. His wife was fired too, probably because she was a troll. Seriously. I'm pretty sure she lived under a bridge and bullied goats. The university got a sweet new please don't tell anyone deal, and oh man, the food. It tasted like food. Glorious day. Oh, and just to add insult to injury, I won the bike too. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Reddit Pro Revenge. If you like the stories, hit that thumbs up button and leave a comment letting me know your thoughts. Also, if you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. See you guys in the next one.